Welcome to Trailblazers and Titans with your host, Dr. Keith Haney. Trailblazers and Titans is your go-to podcast for insights, inspiration, and actionable advice from the world's most successful entrepreneurs and leaders. Each episode features in-depth interviews with industry pioneers, innovative thinkers, and business moguls who share their journeys, challenges, and strategies for success. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned leader, or someone looking to make a significant impact, this podcast provides the tools and motivation to blaze your trail and become a titan in your field. Tune in to learn, grow, and transform your vision into reality.
My guest today is Nicholas Stewart, MBA, CSSC, is a transformative sleep and burnout coach, consultant, a sleep health advocate deeply influenced by personal and profound challenges with sleep. In 2018, Nick suffered from a catastrophic sleep crisis due to harmful medical treatments, enduring 17 sleepless nights and multiple hospitalizations over several years. This harrowing experience fueled his dedication to sleep science, leading him to author a 2024 ebook bestseller, Sleep Fitness, The Top 10 Sleep Facts That Matter. Merging his 20 years of mindful meditation and Eastern philosophy with expertise as a Fortune 500 trainer with real-world applications, Nicholas assists a diverse clientele, helping them repair sleep or avoid burnout, upgrade their energy quality, and redefine their energy capacity to new heights. We welcome Nick to the podcast. Well, Nick, welcome to the podcast. How you doing today?
Reverend, is it Haney? Is that how you pronounce it?
Just like Green Acres.
I am more than I don't know what's the word. There's a sense of deliverance to be here finally. You know, this is nearing the end of the 2024 podcast circuit that I was on, and I missed my first chance of being very transparent in regards to the theological aspects of my journey. And once you were on the docket, I was like, oh yes. And then we got canceled for like months or something. So this feels nice. This feels like there's some closure because it's also kind of looking to the future. And so this is nice. This is nice. And like I said, after I saw your setup, I was like, I'm gonna go to the sit down in a chair and relax and not do the spastic. People say I'm a melding of Johnny Cash and Elton John.
Interesting mix there.
So today I'd like to be a little more Johnny Cash than Elton John, but sometimes I can't help it.
A little less flamboyant.
Yeah, actually the original suit. So I'm closing up a client right now. For listeners who are just tuning in, I train folks, and we'll talk about what that means. But I'm training a CEO who is in India. He's the head of a publishing company, and I've been loving working with him because I have a black suit that back when I was a Fortune 500 performance trainer for underserved youth, going for these internships at Google and these crazy places. We'll talk about that later. One of my fellow trainer heroes, Peter, always wore black on Fridays. And so then I just started wearing black on Fridays.
Interesting.
And I didn't really know why. I can't remember what his reason why it was, but it eventually migrated to Johnny Cash. And he has a song called Man in Black. And if you haven't read the lyrics and you care about social justice, you're behind one step. Mm. It's a full solidarity with underprivileged, socioeconomically unjustly jailed. It was a big thing for him. And it was basically it'd be wonderful to wear rainbows all the time and be happy-go-lucky, but the world is as it is. And so until that day comes, I'm the man in black.
Yeah.
And so he wore black for his whole career.
Fascinating. I remember that song.
So
I haven't had to look at the lyrics though, but that's interesting. I got to check it out now.
The song kind of sucks, to be honest with you, but the lyrics are amazing. I actually brought it back when I started coaching again, wearing all black, because of that. And then I was like, I should do like an all white suit too. And then so I was working with this guy in India and quickly realized like, oh, in India culturally, white linen pants, white blazers, they're much more white aesthetically acceptable. Whereas if I was working with, like a CEO from Boston down the street here, I don't think you would ever catch me in the white top. But earlier today when I came in, I was like, I'm going to wear the white top today because, we have a little bit of, faith-based stuff. But the light was so bright in the room, I looked ridiculous. So I was like, I'm glad we didn't start because I ran, switched, and got the black jacket. And I was like, whoo! I'm like, that would have been too much.
Nicholas being translucent.
Yeah, it was between the windows and the white suit. I was like, I don't think Reverend's going to be down with this.
So we got to get to my favorite question before we dive into more interesting things. But what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I want you to know that, and for listeners and viewers, I was on a podcast with a great guy who is doing a new testimonial for my book, and he had me back for a second time. We had a wonderful time together. And he similarly gave me a very long list of questions that seemed epic. And then I got your list and was like, nope, Reverend wins. Like, I have to go now study my own life to get these. And so I have notes. For those of you who can see, I have notes for questions 2 through, I told him I didn't want to answer one question, through 22. He's got 22 questions of me. And this is where, this is something like one of my values, and one of those things that my clients will, get very clear on, is like, Nick is brutally honest. So my honesty begins with complete disappointment. I have mulled on that first question. I have tried out different things. I have run different ideas across my own mother. And I'm coming to the interview to say, I don't have an answer.
Interesting.
I don't. Like, I worked hard to go back. I thought about my early days in the church, right? I'm too little to really take it in. It's more like a story, than something beyond that. And then I tried to think of other things. I was like, I remember my mom telling me, like, kill him with kindness. I remember that. The only other thing I can remember was, like, I remember watching Return of the Jedi as a very little kid. We had like 4 videos in the house. I don't know how these videos got there. But I remember being very moved as a little kid who still probably couldn't articulate it, that Luke, in 2 ways, one, that he was persistently, without, it's like reckless faith. Like, he had reckless faith that his father still could be redeemed, that there was still good in him. And I think there's even this moment where, like, I think the main bad guy kind of gives him an ultimatum, and Luke's like, throws the lightsaber and basically says, then, like, I'd rather than if failing means I still hold on to the belief that there is still good in him, then I choose to fail. And I remember as a little kid being pretty moved by that. And that actually has come back. So, like, now we can go, like, right into the book for a second. So I wrote a book in 2024, 2023, and we can get into the nitty gritty because it all comes back to the faith, called Sleep Fitness. And we can talk about what that means and whatnot. But I remember, like, almost a year of meetings with sales and marketing people who were like, you can't call this thing Sleep Fitness. No one knows what that is. You will never make it. And I eventually was like, I don't think you understand what I intend with part of it. So I was originally like, I'm never going to trademark it or copyright it. for what I wanted, and I'll explain what I wanted. I have since now put a trademark in after this other thing, so it actually has two meanings now. But my original intent was that it's very simple. You think about medically, several decades ago, your regular primary care physician finally was like, we can't handle the level of we can't obesity, like we can't handle public health on our own anymore. And slowly but surely, what happened? Well, this powerful emergence of the physical fitness industry. And now we have physical fitness trainers, and we have gyms down every which way, and we have equipment, and we have technology, and we have relationships between colleges and trainers and sports teams. There's a whole world there. We have physical therapy. I mean, nutritionalists, Lululemon. I mean, it's enormous. I don't know what the revenue is for that industry, but it's enormous. And when I came into the sleep thing, or actually said when God so kindly invited me in, I realized pretty quickly, there's a gap here. Like statistics say that more people go to their doctors to be like, I'm having issues with sleep, than any other issue. And yet, every single year, Reverend, the amount of people with sleep deprivation in the United States goes up. And I couldn't point to anything that looked like the physical fitness world for sleep. And I was like, okay, let's go with that and see if we can come up with a term that could pull together something that could be of use in trying to reverse this epidemic and this suffering, very much like the physical fitness industry was. So I basically ended up, like Luke, saying, so maybe my answer is Luke. I basically remember saying, I don't really care if it ends up being sleep fitness or not, whatever the term is that makes it more cohesive for people. I don't really care. There just needs to be one. Right. Because this stuff is so disconnected and torn apart, and in some ways it's disgusting. I think of Jesus going into the temple and throwing the tables over. I've started to turn the tables over because I'm like, you're the expert, and you're gallivanting the globe and having hors d'oeuvres at the academic conferences and getting on your TED Talks and coming up with cool slogans and making tons of passive money because you put the word dream in the subheading of your book. Because, by the way, just so you know, just so people know about their own country mates, I don't know why. I'm not sure if it's the United States, but no. I talked to I had an international podcast. People are obsessed with dreams. Mm. There is literally a top 100 Amazon ebook dream list. There are all 100 books all in dreams.
We want to know what those mean. So if you can tell me what my dreams mean, of course I want to buy the book, right?
I will tell you my theory about dreams. But I think that was, I remember eventually just saying, okay, if someday that term does create some kind of stability and in cross-sectional relationships in industry that is needed, but I fail, then I fail. That's what I am here to do then. So maybe my first answer is Luke's accepting that I'd rather believe that there is good in my dad to turn around than do whatever the ultimatum was. And I think, that probably stayed with me.
I love that. So tell us about how your sleep crisis led to what you're doing now. You don't get into this job usually, or this work, unless something in your life has led you there. So tell us what led you to focus on sleep and sleep fitness.
Folks, we're on question 3. So tell us a bit about your background and what led you to become a coach specializing in energy and sleep health. It's a 2-part answer, but the first one is the one you're after. So the first answer is gruesome. I'm learning to make peace with telling the story, but it is gruesome. So basically, here's the story. In 2018, I had always had a little bit of a sleep issue. I had tingling in my feet after a spinal injury. I'll think of what the word is in a second, what that's called. And it was tough to go to sleep. It felt like someone was tickling my feet. And this is like, 15, 20 years ago. And so I said, Doc, I'm having trouble going to sleep. And he said, well, that's fine. Everyone does. And then I said, give me your foot. And I started tickling his foot. And he's like, cut it out. And I'm like, just imagine this doesn't stop. And he's just like, muscle relaxer, sleep medication, So I've been taking this medication for forever. Long story short, I had finished my dedicated time as a Fortune 500 trainer for underserved youth, and was sort of like in a transitionary take time and sort of reevaluate time. And I had to switch between insurances. So I switched to this little community health center down the street just because it was easy. Well, not to throw too much shade, but the person I got assigned to did what I now know is shamed me for taking the medication. And I had to take drug tests and fill out documents that I wouldn't sell on the street. I know drug dealers. I was like, hey guys, do you know this? And they're like, I don't even know what you're talking about, Nick. I'm like, well, I just had to sign my life away that I didn't. And it made me feel, I'm not sure I can put words to how that made me feel. I guess incriminated, judged, little. So when the time came around to be like, I should go back and then get a refill, I was slow to do it. I really just felt like I just couldn't go in. I felt like I was begging, Well, pretty quickly, my sleep started shortening in the morning and it started shortening at night. And it kept doing that for a while to the point where I thought there's something wrong. There's something seriously wrong. So I better call them down there. So in August of 2008, blistering hot, man, I called them and asked and said, hey, listen, I think there's something wrong. I need to see this lady. Okay, great. We'll see you on August. I can't remember. 23rd. It was like August 8th or whatever. And I was like, no. I mean, I think there's something serious going on. That's wonderful. We'll see you on August 21st then. No, maybe we should escalate this. Nothing. And this is where the story gets crazy. I didn't fall asleep again for 17 days in a row.
Wow.
So, and I'll share more of the details of what that's like, and I'm happy to answer what that's like. But up until just 7 months ago, I thought I was actually the world record holder, until finally someone found that there was a guy right before the Guinness World Records, by the way, a couple decades ago, just on whatever science they had then. That's not even now. Then they were like, this is so detrimental, we're not going to record it because we don't want to entice anyone to try this. So we're going to stop recording this as something that someone could try to make a record for. And some guy, I think he's saying something McDonald. It always reminds me of Ronald McDonald. It's like Douglas McDonald. He did 18 days. And to be honest with you, I was relieved when I found out. I was like, oh, good. I don't have to bear the whole cross. He did.
Right.
Yeah. He disappeared and no one knows what happened. There was another guy that did 10 days in New York Times Square for a fundraiser who was a hostess. Within 3 days, he was completely paranoid and was wouldn't eat the food. He thought people were poisoning it. And then there was some kid who I think in the 60s did 12 nights for a science fair. That was creative. I'll just see what happens if I stay up. Both of those guys, in fact, actually all 3 of those people went away and have never been heard from again.
Oh, wow.
I'm the only one that has appeared publicly since that. So I'm happy to say I have the silver medal in most days consecutively without a lick of sleep. And we can talk a little bit about what that's like in there, because that journey was a journey into the shadow of the valley of darkness. And that is where, in a way, my roots of Christianity and whatnot came blazing back. Short story for folks is that I then spent 2.5 years with what in the United States they call insomnia. I saw every kind of professional you could possibly see. And after about 2.5 years, I was sitting in my living room, and like I just books, I realized like no one's coming to save me. No one's coming. I've seen them all. I've read it all. So whatever flicker of light, thank God gave us that little like final little spark in there, that was enough that I was like, then let's do what we know how to do, which is, I'm a weird hybrid of a person. Part of my life is art and religion and spirituality. I have a undergraduate degree in that. And then I have a master's degree in business with a focus on research, and got whiffed into a PhD program and, learned how to read research documents. So I immediately headed there, Reverend. And again, the short story being is that I began to, over time, test and develop and learn more and collect more until there was stacks and papers everywhere. And over time developed a strategy that I needed, that I appear to be destined to have developed. Some of it has never been done before, which I didn't know until way after the book came out. And this will disappoint some people, but this is where it's, I'm gonna be honest with you, like, you want to hear the part in the story, and I've had people ask me to tell the story where then the insomnia like went away and I had this day of victory, know?
Right.
And it's like, no, that's not really how it works. It works more like a snake, just like skin, just, every day a little bit more, just a little bit more. And then one day, finally, I realized, oh, it's over, it's gone, And so there's some famous guy who said in the future, I'll have to use this quote in one of the re-releases, was like, in the future, individuals will have to be their own doctors. So in essence, I became my own research analyst, therapist, researcher, and doctor, to finally shed what was 2.5 years of insomnia. I even forgot till recently. There was multiple times, Reverend, during that 2.5 years, where I had there was at least 2 times where I had 10 days without sleep, a couple 7 days without sleep. It was truly a journey, to say the least. So that's where that came from. That's where the sort of impetus of sleep. I'll sneak in the God answer. 2 things. One, that experience, especially the 17 days without sleep, that taught me what faith is. That taught me why it is a critical, if you want to talk in business language, it's a competitive advantage, because I had faith, because of that Christian upbringing, that there might be something on the other side of this, right? So faith in my life suddenly took on a meaning that wasn't any longer intellectual. It was very real. It was very felt. It was very religiously bound all the way through me, and it's what kept me through that 17 days. How did I get into the work of doing it? Not that long after, I had one of these reflective moments where I was like, why did God take me 17 floors down in the basement on this one? Like that, like what, like we had, what, why did we have to go that far down? Like, couldn't we have just done 5 days or something? and then, I think self-reflective questions. And I think this is the beauty, I think, of the Christian faith, is that if you utilize self-reflective questions based on your own understanding of God in your life, it's kind of like Anthony Robbins is like, ask a better question, get a better result. It's like, if you ask a better question about God's relationship to you, you might get a better answer. And right. So even though I was a little complaining, like, bro, 17 floors down, it hit me. Nah, Nick, like, he wanted to make it real clear. First of all, it's like, can you argue with that? No. Like, you really want to tell someone about a problem? Take them 17 days without sleep. I live in Boston. We have the greatest evaluated and rated cluster of hospitals in the world. And somehow I fell through the cracks of all of those things for 2.5+ years. And then it dawned on me, maybe the problem isn't just me. Maybe there's something going on. I thought it was just me.
Right.
But I'm like, 17 floors down? That's like a whole nother level. And so then I put my finger into the pulse of what's going on and found out, like, oh no. No, God made it real clear. Like, yes, Nick, you, white, privileged, living in the Northeast with the medical people, could still have that happen to you. That means there is something seriously wrong. And I've chosen you. And I believe, it started around the day I saw Zero Dark 30 the other day. And I didn't remember this woman saying this, but she said something like, everyone on my team died during this process. And I believe that I was the one spared to finish the job. Mm. And in a way, I feel a resonance to that, where I'm like, I feel like I survived that and went through that whole experience because I was meant to be the one to start turning the tables and start making noise.
Yeah, it makes sense. So that's a nice segue into your book, Sleep Fitness, the top 10 sleep facts that matter. Kind of give us what your book reveals to people who are dealing with sleep issues.
Sure. So it was my dad who was like, you probably should write a book about this. And I'll tell you this, and I think probably in the line of work that you're in, this won't be a big surprise. I have a new colleague, a woman who, again, like we talked about, that people were like, oh, you're a holistic coach. Like, oh, wow, you're like East and West. Like, oh, whoa, you're like technology and mythology. So I have a new connection with a woman who is bringing the first, literally, this is how, in part of this, we're in the Stone Age. The first FDA approved level 2 product to treat insomnia ever. It is, you'll get a prescription for it. It's very expensive. And so I've worked with her, and unfortunately the one I got is a dud, but I'm going to be testing it and whatnot. And we had this conversation, and we both really deeply spoke about it. And actually my first podcast with a guy I'm going to work with later, we spoke about it too, because in 2018, his sister committed suicide. So we were able to talk openly more about the fact that when you dig into the reading and you get serious about it, and you're not just publishing silly books, I have all of them from Amazon about how, this sleep book will help you and all this nonsense, that depression, anxiety, and sleep disorder, insomnia are so interwoven. If it was a tapestry, you wouldn't know where to start pulling. So when I started writing the book, I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna do this, so I better start going. Well, I was like, I'm gonna write enough about me, and then I got to write about all of anxiety, then I got to write about all of the depression, and then I got to write about all of the sleep. And so I was basically working on Lord of the Rings. It's enormous. There's a version of it. It's enormous. It's called the Silent Sleep Crisis. And this will double answer a question you had later. So I got working on it, and that year, a friend who used to live here in my place with me, and I got the call from his brother, and due to sleep-related issues, some depression, not sleeping, he has. Are you familiar with sleep apnea?
Yeah.
So for folks that are not, it basically is that you're not getting full oxygen and breathing in your sleep, and it can kill you. So a combination of those things killed him. And not only was I brokenhearted, I was like, I have failed. Because I remember one of my sort of like initial criteria was like, can I write something that would help him? That he would understand. And once I knew he was dead, I was like, I didn't make it in time. Like, this is a problem. Like, I need to figure out how to turn, like, this is taking too long. I need to pivot on a dime and do something about it immediately. And so again, self-reflective, God-based theological dialogue. I said to myself, well, what if God said to me, hey, Nick, I think this is great to do in your life periodically. Great job. You proved yourself here, here, and here. You overcame the challenges. You did what I wanted you to do. Pack up your stuff. Be ready. We're heading out next Thursday. You got a week. I was like, what would I do with this issue? I've got, at that point, I think it was around 4 or 5 years, I was in knee deep of research on sleep. I basically created an independent academic program on sleep that you can't go to, outside of the world. And so I said to myself, well, maybe if I did the opposite of Lord of the Rings, maybe if I just pushed it down to 10 and forced myself to be like, Nick, you got to pick 10 things out of 5 years of research to pass on as you go. What would they be? Pick them, write the book, and publish it as fast as you can, because there's a lot more of me's. And folks that don't know the statistics, the conservative statistic in the United States for sleep deprivation is around 38%. Talk to industry insiders, they like 45. Talk to real insiders, they like 50. So it was like, get something out quick. So that was the sort of initial premise, was like, how do I choose those things? And then actually I did my homework. I wrote down how I picked those things, because I know you asked. One was, it was a combination. So ID ongoing pitfalls. So stuff that I had realized, people sort of believe this or tend to do this, but if they understood this in this way, they would avoid that pitfall and maybe save themselves from sleep tragedy. And then I was like, well, You know what? There's this thing that this is kind of like an ongoing series thing I'm going to work on called Sleep Knowledge 2.0, where it's like Reverend Haney's like, I know about sleep. I'm like, no, you don't. I'm like, go ahead, tell me something, but I'm like, I know you don't, because things have moved on. There's been plenty of research. I sat through all of it, like things have changed. We know new things that we didn't know before. So I looked for a couple of those nuggets, and I'll give you examples, a few chapter examples, and how that plays out for people. What were the most powerful scientific tactics? That had to make the list. So those are integrated in there. And then lastly, I finish with the bigger issue. Last chapter is sleep in society. I just felt like if God took me to the 17th floor, I better get a chapter in there that's about the bigger picture. So that's how I put the collection together of those 10.
As I look at chapter 3, it was a fascinating title. Your body's designed to stay awake.
This is Sleep Knowledge 2.0.
Right.
So you want to know about it?
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Right. So, for listeners and stuff, like, I can guarantee you, I will bet this whole condo I live in that there is not a single book on Amazon about sleep that says your body was meant to stay awake for a few days. But here's the thing. Let's look at it in two places. We'll start anthropology, sort of history. Guys, like, as we grew into tribes, we had night shifts. And me and Reverend Haney and Bill and Peter, we stayed up all night to protect the food and protect the tribes. So we can stay up. In fact, it's almost silly because you don't even have to go that far back. You just go ask a college student. Oh yeah, I've done multiple all-nighters, right? And then there's the other side, which is, theologically speaking, that God gave us the ability to do that. That is something we can do. Now, 2 days doesn't feel great. And by the third day, you pretty much want to pass out unless there's something crazy going on. But in truth, we were either designed from the beginning by God to have that capability, or we evolved to have that capability. So one of the reasons why I picked that one is because it does tons of things for people beneficially. And so I'll tell you one, and I'll give you a story and an example. It is one of the greatest anxiety killers I've ever found. So I remember one of the first women that I got introduced to, she was an elderly woman, had a lot of anxiety. She was living in Florida. She wasn't sleeping. And this is what happens, right? And this is a totally logical sequence of thought. I've been sleeping. Now it's like 2. I look at the clock and I go, oh my God, it's 2 and I'm not sleeping. Then I look back at the clock and it's 3:30 and I'm like, holy smoke, something's wrong. In fact, I got to be up in like 90 minutes. And then 60 minutes goes by and you're like, something is wrong and there's something wrong with me. Okay, well, that series of thoughts only does one thing. It just generates fear and anxiety. Well, like, the simplest study on this will tell you, if you're in an anxious state, your heart rate goes up, your adrenaline turns on. You can't sleep if you have adrenaline on. Like, that doesn't work. The part of the brain called the amygdala, which is the like fight or flight sort of piece, that gets put on. Guys, like, that gets put on in case there's bears. It's like an old part of the brain. It's kind of like it's defunct. Like, you ain't going to fall asleep. So what you've done is you have now created a situation for yourself mentally where you're perpetuating it. And then that can go on and on and on and on. versus once I said, listen, I really want you to understand that we are actually designed to be able to stay awake for multiple days. That you could stay awake all night, go to work. No one would probably have a clue that you didn't sleep. You might feel tired, and you might sleep well the next night. And once you get that into your mindset, this is where like education is so important. Like I've tried to trick so many of the industry people where I'm like, if you had to pick one thing to give to your family that wasn't a product from your company that had to do with sleep, what would it be? Their answer is always the same: education. So once she really ingrained that understanding, when she looked at that clock at 2:30, she was like, oh, I was designed this way. Okay, so now we are not turning on all these biological triggers, psychological triggers. We're now okay with it. We're not resisting with it. We're not fighting it anymore. And it's silly to fight it because it's true. It's like, guys, like either God made us this way or we evolved out of survival mechanisms, but we can do this. Like this is something that we can do, So that's one of the reason why that made it. And I actually offer that chapter for free. So if there's anyone that's listening that wants that one, we'll give you my email and stuff. That's the chapter that I just give out for people for free. Because I find that it's very liberating for people. It kind of like reopens their eyes. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I thought it was a catastrophe.
Right.
It's actually kind of an ability, like in a weird way. Like, it's kind of an ability.
I love it. I can think about times like when I got a flight that's early in the morning, and you described it. I'm anxious about oversleeping, so I don't sleep, and so I'm lying there going, I gotta go to sleep. I gotta go to sleep, and the more I do that, the more I can't sleep. So, how do you get out of that state? You describe what the state is. So, how do you trick yourself into getting out of that state?
Cool. Yeah, let's stay with this. So. He's moved on to one of the later questions, everyone. He's moved on to question number 11, which has to do with counterintuitive methods for better sleep. Can you elaborate on one of these methods? So we're diving down here. So I don't give my clients, and I don't put this in the book, so you listening are really hearing this for real. I don't really give rules, but I have a couple. And one of them is tied to this chapter. And the rule is no suffering in bed, period. The moment that you are physically or mentally disturbed, agitated, or, from the Eastern traditions, we always use the word suffering. You're suffering. Out of the bedroom, get out immediately. Because what you've done is over time, right, is you've conditioned like a dog. This is a place where I can suffer. So we have to break that. And what actually amazed me in starting the coaching side of this for a year and a half was that once I gave that to just a couple people, I was amazed. I'm not going to guarantee that just 1 or 2 nights of you doing that is going to fix it for you, but you keep doing it and it will. In fact, the first woman was a woman when I was in the business development stage who does e-courses and would tell me all about what was going on. She had insomnia for over 10 years. And she was really nice. And so I actually went back to her and sent her a message and was like, hey, listen, I'm just going to tell you this rule. And I explained it to her. And I was like, what you're going to do is get up out of bed, go, and is it your living room? Yes. Go to your living room, to that couch with that snuggly blanket, put on a dim light, read Lord of the Rings or whatever, have some tea, and do that until you feel like, yeah, maybe I'll get back into bed, and then go back into bed. Didn't talk to her for 4, 5, 6 weeks or something. Later caught up with her and was like, I kind of want to know. Like, she's the only person that's not a client I've ever told this to. I'm kind of curious, did she do it? Reverend, her response coming out of a LinkedIn message was explosive. It was like, Nick, Oh my God, thank you so much. I wish someone had told me that over 10 years ago, because now I'm sleeping. And I'll ask people like that. I'm like, let me ask you a question. Are there times when during the day you walk by your bedroom? These are for like the people who are like, Nick, I've had insomnia for 10 years, or I've had these issues. And I'm like, and you look in the bedroom and you think to yourself, that's where I suffer.
Mm.
And certain clients go, I have. And then just to share another recent success story of that rule working and shockingly fast. I don't know how fast it worked for her, but it was less than 6 weeks. 10 years of insomnia, applied one tactic: don't suffer in the bed, period. And I just closed up with this guy last night, I think. It was like last night or night before that. And I forgot, you get to do this all the time, like how personally and emotionally invested you are in people that you work with in the ministry.
Right.
That's something that's beautiful about coaching, at least the way that I was born to do it. I was like, oh, I'm a little sad that we're closing up tonight, like, I love you, like. And one of the things in one of our meetings with this client that just finished just a while back, he was kind of like hating on himself. And then he was like, oh, by the way, and he has sleep apnea, so he has to wear this machine on his head. So he's got an excuse not to do this. He's like, I did the no suffering in bed thing. I did it twice. He goes, I realized, oh no, I'm awake. Immediately told myself, that's cool. I was meant to be, but I got to get out. I didn't tell him to do this part, and this is what's beautiful, I think, about what the book offers and what I'm offering people about, and what some people are like, this book is a game changer, and like he's changed sleep science. It's customized. This stuff is so customized. We'll talk about that more later. But so he tells me he took off his sleep apnea mask. He went down the hall, went into the bathroom, took a cold water, towel, just rubbed it off his neck. Maybe he was hot. I don't know. Put it back down on the bathroom sill, walked back to the bed, put the mask on, got in bed, and went to sleep. Last night, that was like 4 weeks ago, maybe more. Last night when we closed, one of his like clear accomplishments during the training was, I sleep through the night every night. So there's something very powerful about divorcing yourself from any kind of physical or mental discomfort in the bedroom. Psychologists would all talk about conditioning, right?
Yeah.
It's reverse conditioning. Yeah.
I love that. So tell us about your sleep fitness coaching program.
It's crazy. I've had to rethink it multiple times, but in a way, the book also has helped guide me a little bit. How best to tackle that question? Did you maybe my notes will help me tackle that better than I can. Yeah, you got me here. I'll say a couple things, but I know we're going to go deeper into it. So, like, one thing is, it appears that here's some things that make me different, especially if you're like, wow, you know what, my sleep isn't great. Like, I work with people. So there's two models. One, I work with people for like 90 minutes to 2 hours and just have one session. Sometimes it's two. For some people, it's like, now we got to do the whole 6 to 8 weeks based on where you're at. Regardless, one of the things that always begins is that we always start with a very long, totally open-ended, collaborative discussion to evaluate everything about what's going on with them, with every little nook and cranny that's got to do with sleep and energy. And then from there, in simple terms, one of the things, well, it's the two things. The second thing that makes that really different, that I didn't realize was different until I started posting on LinkedIn or like the book came out and stuff. Almost every review on Amazon mentions this. Is that almost every other model is like, okay, Reverend Haney, we're going to start you with box 1, and then week 2 you're going to do this, and then we're going to move you into this theoretical box. And it was sort of this one size fits all solution. So my energy and sleep training program comes from a wildly opposite starting point. It comes from what chapter 2 is about, which is, this is a custom job. I mean, there was a while, I remember someone asked on social media, like, hey, over the last 3 months, what's the most common, issue that your clients have had? And then I literally like looked through my folders, and none of them had started with the same issue.
Right.
And just to drive this point even home harder, another great guy he's like me, but black, from the islands, and his edge is sleep apnea. He's great. But in his book, I learned that there's 82 sleep disorders.
Wow.
Guys, guess what? There's only one Institute of Health Science approved method for treating insomnia in the United States. That makes no sense. How is that like crazy? Like my first 2 clients are a perfect example. I had an elderly woman who was worried and anxious, who I didn't realize was like 72, which that comes with a whole nother range of things that change with age and sleep. And then the other guy, he was having PTSD nightmares. Well, we're not going to be starting at the same place.
Right.
Right? Like with her, we're starting right, like you said, at chapter 3. We're starting right with, and then this is, I'll move into like another thing that is sort of trademarked in my model that is my own, which I don't understand why it's not in the approved American one. It's called the 3 dial system. And we kind of also use this in the early assessment. We also use it midpoint and towards the end, which is your mindset, your beliefs, your knowledge, anything that's got to do with that and sleep. What is that? Let's assess that. Second, what are the activities that you're doing? They could be mental, but mostly like physical activities that you're doing that are either impeding or aren't lining up with the science that's going to help you. That's the second dial. Third dial, and I dropped some videos recently finally and just like got the nerve up. Some of these like sleep technologists were like, Nick, go easy on, it's called CBTI. That's the traditional cognitive behavioral therapy insomnia. That's the approved method by the National Science Health, whatever. My third dial is, and it goes right back to what we started talking about, environment, physical environment. And I've added some nuances to it, but like what's going on in your physical environment that may or may not be helping or hurting the condition of your sleep? Let's evaluate it. And there's another part of the training, but to keep it really simple, if you want to think about it, we begin custom to you. We figure out where is Reverend Haney on dial 1, 2, and 3. And then we discuss, some of it's a little me getting you up to snuff on some things that maybe you didn't realize about sleep. Some of it is you've got some ideas and things you think you might want to try. And we go, cool, this is where you're at. what would it look like to turn each dial up over the next 4 weeks? Let's define that, and then let's come up with a very simple plan, and then let's implement it, and let's start it, and let's get it going. And then we can talk about the plans and how they work, because they're specific too. But so that initial plan is to get that dialed up to that point. And then for a lot of people, or depending on the person, by that 4th week or so, we're like, oh, okay, cool. Like, I'm here and here, or I've done this and this, but I haven't done this. In the next 2 weeks, let's push it to this and to this. And I give you an example of where the environment thing is just like huge, which again is where I'm just like, who approved CBTI to not have this be a part of it? I'll finish with this young guy shortly. In fact, I have a quote from him, because this is another thing that people don't realize, and this is part of the pain and the painful journey, and why I'm when people are like, wow, it's heroic what you're doing, Nick, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, God scared me so badly that I'm running. You know what I mean? Like, I am like Moses. I'm God fearing. Like, there's no heroicness. This guy goes, where is it? This is very common. He knew me a little, so I coaxed him. I'm just now realizing the difference between general health care and specifically targeting sleep as the foundation. Just a few weeks into the program, I've got more energy, surprisingly, and I'm in bed by 10 p.m. This is pretty like a young guy. If this is just the start, it will only get better. Okay, so how many weeks have we worked together at that point? It had been 3 weeks. So we had already come up with plans, and basically I'll usually we'll develop the plan together, and then I'll usually develop a training video and then send them the training videos with the documents and whatnot. And I'd love to tell you that the mental stuff that I did with him, the stop lifting weights, make sure you walk home, different other things that have to do with sleep science. It wasn't until we got to, okay, let's assess the environment. And with every client, I like to do this. I like to run through kind of my own, I literally tested over 100 products of sleep and energy. Like, I have the credit card debt to prove it. I'll send it to you. You can get the church to pay for it for me. Sad part is, folks, people were like, you should do, what is it called? Affiliate marketing. Right. And I was always very hesitant until finally I hired this consultant that worked with me for a few months. He was great. His name's Abby. I highly recommend him. If you have time management, business stuff that you want someone just jump into your business, he was great. But we basically came up with okay, why don't we start creating a database of all, because my closet was spilling out with all the products. And I brought a couple today just to show you and share with you. I got to 81. Reverend, and I realized maybe I passed a few of them on the spreadsheet. There's no reason to go forward. Almost none of it works. Right. There's very few things, but there are things that do. So with each client, I like to catalog through. Now, he doesn't make a lot of money, but in my mind, in our conversations, he was the first person that I was like, you know what? This product, yes, this one, of course, but I feel like the immediate game changer for him might be a mattress pad, like a memory foam mattress pad, but it's probably too expensive and probably do anything. Long story short, I don't know how we ended up broaching it, but we're on the phone and he's looking at them and we're going back and forth, and he cancels the order. He ends up getting one. In fact, he goes one step further, gets one that I didn't know exists. And then I was mad after a few days. So I was like, I want that. So I made one, which is, some of them are just 3-inch memory foam. Right. But some of them are called pillow tops. They look like white little pillow tops, and they're kind of fluffy, but they don't have the memory foam thing. Well, there's some that have both. Well, this little bastard after we got off the phone, later tells me like, Nick, I got one for like $79.99 off Amazon because of this sale and this and this and this. And it's got both. Well, he gets it a week later or so, and he's such a young guy, he doesn't even know how to put it on the bed. So I'm getting texts like, how do I put this on the bed? What goes on top of what? So I tell him, I get a message later by text, and he's like, Nick, I feel like I'm just lying on a cloud right now. This is amazing. And so the next morning, I don't usually do this, but like the next morning, I was just like, I had to know. So I texted him. So I said, hey man, I said, how'd last night go? He's like, Nick, I was lying like this with the cell phone in my hand. And when I woke up the next morning, my arm was still in the exact same position with the cell phone in the exact same position. My body literally never moved. So out of the 3 dials, without a doubt, the most significant bump, kick, jump, and improvement in terms of his sleep quality was just getting that guy a mattress top for less than $100. You're gonna win. No, it's gonna happen. The question really is, like I said earlier about my insomnia sort of dissipating, is the question that none of us can answer, or only God can, which is Reverend Haney's got his own little clock in his body and his makeup, and it's different than mine. So let's say we had the exact same issue. Maybe mine resolves in 6 weeks, yours resolves in 20 weeks. Who knows? And so, for me, with my clients, it's like, and I have this kind of funny thing. It's like I was a born empath, but I'm from Boston. So the best that I've figured out is that if you know anything about Boston sports, is we win a lot.
Unfortunately, yes.
And I'm a basketball fan from my mother's time, so I have like this big piece of artwork that has Bill Russell's time in the Boston Celtics, and it's like they had an 8-peat. So like in Boston, you don't win just once. You have to win twice to be taken seriously. And I don't know if that influenced me, but it's not in a bad way. It basically made me competitive, but with intrinsic things.
Right.
Right? So that is sort of how that came to be. It was like, how do we win? And I do a free newsletter, which is kind of changed into a free program, which any of your listeners are welcome to join. I release it every 2 weeks, and I sort of did this like, we're not going down to Florida with Tony Robbins and all staying together and like being like, oh my God, we're in the hotel and we're changing our lives. Like, nah, like every 2 weeks I'll drop you a little something, mull on it, kind of like the book, see if it works for you. But after 12 editions by the end of the year, through erosion and what fits you, there's a good chance you might have improved your life in some way, professionally or in your own time. And so one of the editions I did last year was during the Olympics with LeBron. And I was like, Olympic special. What was the target? It wasn't insomnia, it wasn't restless leg, it wasn't whatever, PTSD or whatever the issue is someone comes to me with. I get the ones that the doctors don't know what to do with. It was gold medal. And then he's older. But he wants to win. So who does he call? Steph Curry, one of the top 5 greatest offensive players of all time. But to me, that ain't enough. And for them, it wasn't enough. So they called up Kevin Durant, who will go down as one of the top 10 offensive players by statistics of all time. And said, okay, let's put a team around this. Because if we do all of our jobs, the chances of us not winning is really, really low. And so I just sort of said it. I said, like, I want my clients, I don't know if some of the members were like, this guy's weird. I'm like, I want my clients to win.
Right.
You know, like I originally was like, oh, I kind of thought I'd be a car repairman. It's like, no. I want you to be victorious. You know, I want you to be able to get to a place where you're like, championship has been made. And the way to do that is to stack the odds in your favor. And then to, again, during that 6 to 8 weeks, if that's what you need, for us to adjust it where it needs to. Because maybe something's not working right for you, or there's not enough of this, or there's not enough of that. But there's always at least 2 triple layered things that have to do with the mind, the body, activity, and the environment that are happening in the morning, during the day, and during the night, every single day. And as I say to some clients, I'm like, don't worry, it's kind of like a rocket NASA ship where it's like it goes up and then like pieces fall off. It's like some of the stuff that we do in 4 weeks, you'll never do it for the rest of your life.
Right.
But there might be a couple things that you keep for the rest of your life that you always do. You just don't know what they are. So I'd say custom solutions, accounting for all 3 of those areas of life, the mind, the activity, and the environment, and then loading and then stacking the deck. That really puts me outside. I'm the black sheep of the family. I'm sure other people will pick up on it like later, but it's always like, how do we stack this more? How do we stack this on top of this, on top of this, so that we're getting multiple things at the same time?
Well, Nick, thanks so much. Blessings on what you do, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much for allowing me the what would we call it? The opportunity to share sort of the innermost core elements of what drives someone to recklessly go forward on a journey that, you know, as I've said to some people, you're like, oh, I just hired a trainer. They're like, oh, cool, Haney's going to lose 15 pounds. You say, oh, I just hired an energy and sleep trainer, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? You know, so I'll keep going until I run out of steam, but, you know, I'll be here.
Well, blessings on that, because you do provide a valuable resource to people.
So far, so good. So far, so good.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Trailblazers and Titans. If you enjoyed our conversation and found value in the insights shared, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue bringing you the stories of the world's most inspiring leaders. Don't forget to follow us on social media for updates and exclusive content. Join our community of Trailblazers and Titans, and let's continue to learn, grow, and transform our visions into reality together. Until next time, keep blazing your trail and striving for greatness.